Why? Why the fuck are we here? What's the meaning of all this? To answer this question, I'm going to take you on a journey of 3 religions slash philosophies. And it's not the 3 ones you're thinking about. Trust me. And finally, I'm going to tell you what I took out of those 3 to make my own beliefs, which I think explain almost everything that we're doing here. And honestly, at the end of this video, either you're going to agree with me or you're going to absolutely hate me for destroying your beliefs and thinking I'm spewing a bunch of bullshit. So either way, honestly, it'll probably be a good video, so I'd recommend you watch it till the end. Most of this stuff is taken from a guy called Alan Watts, who popularized a lot of the Eastern philosophies in the West. The first philosophies we're going to talk about today is Taoism. Yes, it is a T, and yes, I am still pronouncing it with a D, because that's just how it's said, apparently. Tao. There are 3 things coming from Taoism. It was invented by a guy called Lao Tzu. He was a sort of strategist or philosopher, I don't remember. And he was, before he retired or he didn't want to serve the emperor anymore, he was asked to create a book or create a bunch of teachings on how to be a good emperor, on how to lead people right. And as a kind of a joke, he just gave a little pamphlet called The Way of the Tao, which had a few teachings in there. And the 3 most important ones, at least the 3 I've learned from Alan Watts, that resonated with me quite a bit, were first, the Tao, second, the non-duality of opposites, and finally, the Wu Wei. I think that's how it's called. Yeah, Wu Wei. I don't know if you're supposed to say Wu Wei or another way. I don't give a shit. The Tao is the shadow behind our eyes, the shadow behind our perception. There is you, right? There is this you that you think you are. There is this ego, this personality that you believe you are, which really is only an idea of yourself and the sensations of your body that make you feel like you are something inside of a bunch of meat, right? But behind all of this, observing your own thoughts, the thoughts you think are you or you think are inside of you, there's something else. There's the nothingness observing, a sort of nothingness. Maybe not nothingness, but more like no thingness. Which is pretty much the same thing as saying the infinite. Because being infinite means you cannot be one thing. So you are no thing. Okay? And what do we call the infinite? What do we qualify as the infinite a lot of times? As being infinite. God. So the Tao would be the equivalent of what we believe God is. It's the infinite behind it all, right? But it's not something we can perceive. Just like you can't, and I'm going to repeat a bunch of what Alan Watts said, because I believe it's a good analogy. You can't bite your own teeth. You can't see your own eyes. The Tao cannot be named, really. We say the Tao just so that there is something, but we can't qualify what it is. It's just the thing behind it all. Okay, so that's the first principle of Taoism. There is a thing behind it all, but it is more of a nothingness. And I know it's a bit weird, but it is what it is. Second is the non-duality of opposites. We believe there is good and bad, light and dark, or high and low, all these kinds of things, right? And we believe they are opposites. But truth be told, they are just part of the same spectrum. They're just both extremes of a spectrum. Instead of saying there is this sort of wall and there's hate and love on each side of it, it would be more accurate to say they're part of a stick where hate is here, love is here, on the same stick, right? Right here. And in between are just degrees of hate on this side, degrees of love on this side, And here, like this stick represents just emotion. And those are just the most extreme degrees of each part. But that also means hate and love are the same thing. Hate and love are the same whole. Another way of understanding it would be you cannot have hate without love. You cannot have love without hate. You cannot have something without nothing. You cannot have a solid without space. Every extreme is dependent upon each other to exist. Of course, they're all concepts at the end of the day, but you can only understand them through their opposite. So it's meaningless to try and make one or the other disappear, because the other can only exist because of the one. So it doesn't mean you should just say, oh yeah, I'm gonna hate a bunch of people because it's just part of the whole thing. But that just means you shouldn't try and erase one or the other. And that means you should accept every part of the experience of life, because every part is an important part. Every part is something that matters to the whole, to the rest of it. You can only like summer because you have winter to compare it to. So enjoy both. And finally, Wu Wei. Wu Wei means non-grasping, or the more accurate I heard apparently was non-forcing. Wu Wei is the lazy man's best friend. Let's say that. It doesn't mean you should be lazy. It just means you shouldn't strive so much. You shouldn't hustle so much, right? We have this, especially in the States, in a lot of places in the West actually, where it is kind of glorified to be a hustler, to try and make as much money as possible, to try and make your place in the world and all that shit, and just no sleep and work out and be productive at every minute of the day, you know? But this principle basically tells you, don't. You can enjoy something, you can work at something without feeling a sense of forcingness, of trying to make it your own, trying to control it at all costs. And I'll explain why this principle is very important later when I go towards the other philosophies. But this comes down to the Tao, which is the force beneath it all, behind it all, handles most of what life is happening in life. We think we control shit, but we don't. Most of it is controlled by what we call our subconscious, right? Like your hair grow without you trying to. You breathe even when you're not thinking about it. You can try and control it, right? Breathing is a bit special because you can take control over it. You can start breathing on your own. But when you're not thinking about it, you don't stop breathing. It's still happening, right? When you're a kid, you grow on your own. Like, so many things happening without your conscious effort to make it happen, because the Tao is handling it. A lot of people like to call it the subconscious, but it's bigger than that. It's not just in your head. It's throughout the world. It's the basis of it all. It's the fundamental fabric of the universe. And by fabric, I don't mean matter. I mean consciousness. But just not the kind of consciousness we're familiar with. Not the focused one, not the conscious one. Not the self-aware one. And being able to stop forcing, to be non-forcing, allows for the Tao to do its job. Basically, you do shit, and you let the Tao handle the rest. You don't try to control every step of it, because all these extra steps can be handled by this guy. That's just what it's about. So that's the three main teachings of Taoism. Now, onto the second philosophy. This one is a bit more well-known, but not as much as we might think. Because a lot of us, we have this idea that Buddhism is pretty much a religion that kind of adores the Buddha, but also he's not a god, but he's a little bit of a god. It's a bit weird, right? It's sort of idol, weird stuff. But turns out, very close to Taoism in a lot of ways. First, I'll give you the big summary of what Buddhism is about, and then I'll give you some stuff that makes you understand where it should lead you. So let me explain all of this. The big belief, and I'm being careful about the word belief, you'll see why, in Buddhism is that the universe is just one big organism. And by organism, I mean it on purpose as the same as a body, the same as what we are, for example. Because we are an organism, parts of us are handled consciously and parts of us unconsciously. What we could compare this to would be delegation. Because it wouldn't make sense to try and consciously handle thousands of actions a minute, right? You don't know how you open your hand, for example. The conscious thing you do is opening your hand, but you don't consciously flex each muscle so that it opens. You don't do that. It just goes fluidly because the subconscious handles the rest. You just give the basic command, he handles all the thousands of other ones. It's the same happening with the universe. And therefore, and again, that's why those things intertwine. Letting go of control is like delegating in a business or in the body. And it's the same with the universe. Once you let go of control, you're delegating tasks to the universe, to this big organism, to this part of the organism that is subconscious, to the Tao, to the infinite, to God. When I say like in a business, well, just look at a small business owner who does everything by himself. He's not going to have a lot of time, right? And most likely, a bunch of the tasks will not be able to be done as best as they could be done because he just doesn't have a lot of time for it. Or sometimes some tasks, because he doesn't have a lot of time for them, he cannot get that good at them, right? But he's scared. He's scared of delegating the task because he doesn't know if the person he's going to delegate it to will do it right. And therefore, he stays a small business owner. But now, a guy who can think bigger, who can trust people. And trust is a very important word here. Because trust is about waiving responsibility. It's about letting go of rationality at all costs. The other guy trusts that he can find someone who he can delegate a few tasks to, who will make it work. And so he does. He trusts, he lets go of control, and delegates. And therefore, the person he delegates to, he pays them well, they learn, maybe they already learned, but let's say they learn even more, and they put all their time into those limited tasks. And they do it fucking great. They do it better than the guy as well. And he knows that. He knows he can't just control everything. So he keeps delegating. And again, and again, and again. Now 5 employees, 10 employees. And at some point, not only does he not even need to go to work, because everything he was taking care of before is now taken care of by other people, but they're doing it better than he was. The only thing he needs to keep doing is simply pay them, encourage them, and just be good with people. And now he has way more time, way less stress, and his shit works. Because he built it like an organism. So Buddhism is simply letting go. Just like the Tao, it's about understanding that some things can be conscious, some others don't need to be. You can be in the present, enjoying experience, and letting the rest just handle itself. Another thing that I don't remember if it was really part of Buddhism or if it just made sense with it, but there was a school that asked their students to just give them a bunch of beliefs, right? Tell them their beliefs, tell them what they believe in, what they think the world is about, all that kind of stuff. And they just kept destroying their beliefs one by one, proving one thing, which is no matter the belief, there is a way to counter it. There is a way to show that it is flawed, that it cannot explain the world. And all of this came down to one thing. reality is not about concepts and symbols. Reality is not made up of these things. Concepts and symbols are simply words. They're just like letters. Even the language I'm speaking right now, you only understand it because it's a code that we made for ourselves to communicate with ourselves. But the truth is, what is actually coming out of my mouth right now in reality is sound. It's vibration. The only reality is experience. If right now I just started to speak in the exact same way I'm speaking right now, with the same tones and all that, but just with sounds, that's all you will hear. Like, that's the only real thing. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. That's all there is to it. The tones, the melody of it all. And any belief is wrong, because a belief at its core is made up of concepts and symbols. That's what's real. That's what's not a concept or a symbol. So this last one is a religion, but I'm just going to take the part that explains quite well what might be the truth of our existence. Hinduism. From what I understood, and if I'm wrong, someone can rectify me, but that's what I understood from it. The basics of Hinduism is that there is Brahman, which is the infinite God, pretty much, which is like God, basically God, the Tao, or like, as I've said, the organism, right? The big thing behind it all. Brahman is just sleeping, or maybe it's not Brahman, it's like Brahman or something. I'm not sure. Sleeping. I said Brahman because I'm fucking Arabic, so it made sense, but maybe it's Brahman. I heard it that way as well. Sleeping and having a dream about being a bunch of things. Let me ask you a question. If, again, I'm citing Alan Watts here because it made a lot of sense the way he said it. If you had the powers of God, right? Like right now, just get the powers of a God. Wouldn't it be a cool thing to just start dreaming about a bunch of different things? For example, at first you would dream about beautiful scenery that no human has ever seen. And then you would dream about the most exquisite sounds, the most exquisite tastes, smells, experiences overall, right? You would just live a bunch of cool shit. But then little by little, right? You'd live maybe like 75 years in this dream, like 100 years, 1,000 years, who knows, right? At some point you would want to dream about something different, right? You'd wake up and you'd be like, okay, I've seen a bunch of cool shit now, but I need some story to it, like some conflict. And so you'd start dreaming about adventures, right? You'd go and try and slay dragons, help like save princesses, become a pirate, whatever it is, right? Do a bunch of cool shit. But again, a good 75 years, 100 years, maybe even more, because now there's a conflict. There's a lot of stuff, right? And every time you wake up, like while you're in the dream, you don't know you're in the dream, right? But every time you wake up, you're like, okay, that was awesome. Now what can I do now? And at some point you decide, all right, maybe I want to experience some more hardcore shit. I want to know how it feels to be sick, how it feels to be dying, to be handicapped, to be mentally ill. A bunch of horrible shit. And you go and you dream that thing. And every time you wake up, you're like, whoa, that was insane. Well, what if we're not literally doing that right now? What if Brahman is actually doing this? And I say Brahman, it doesn't need to be this guy, right? We don't need to give it a name. As I've said, the Tao is basically just the thing behind it all, the infinite behind it all. What if this infinite that cannot have a self? Because by being infinite, you cannot have a self. You're everything. By being everything, you cannot be one thing. So therefore, you are no thing. Okay, I'm repeating myself, but it needs to be clear. And so you're a bit bored because like everything is known, everything is, you don't have time, you don't have space. You're just everything. So in order to be something, you need to limit yourself. And to limit yourself, you need to forget that you are infinite. And to become part of either a human, to be an animal, to be a rock, to be a tree, a plant, a bee, whatever it is, right? And when you wake up and you become infinite again, then you had a good time. You experienced a bunch of new things, and now you want to go back. So what if our existence is that? What if we are here simply to experience our existence? To do a bunch of things, whether they're cool or not, whether they're painful or not, so that we can just enjoy it, just the experience of itself. So now I'm going to give you my understanding, my whole thing. I believe we're in a cosmic play, which is, by the way, another thing that's taken from Hinduism. We're in a cosmic play where we're just playing one of the roles that Brahman is playing, that the Tao, that God is playing. Because God was bored, and instead of creating a world and watching people having a bunch of horrible things happen to them, but also a bunch of cool things happen to them, he instead became those people himself and played by himself. God is in a virtual reality in a bunch of billions of creatures and living things. And even unliving things, because the stuff we think is not living actually lives, but in a just much simpler plane. So the whole point of it all is living itself, its experience. The whole point is existing. And whether it's the mind, the body, or the external world, it's all part of the same play, of the same whole happening within yourself. We'll die and we'll forget all about this life. But then we'll do it all again, but this time as an animal, as a plant, as a rock. Or we'll stay a person, we'll stay a human, but we'll be in a completely different country, or a different time, or a fucking other planet. And letting go comes down to understanding that everything is happening now. And for the sole sake of happening, because it's fun. And instead of trying to control it, it's way more fun to just let it surprise you. Let it surprise us. And once we manage to let go of this veil of what we thought was our personality and our expectation and all that, and we can simply be, we reach a state of alignment with the source, which is the Tao, God, the infinite, so many names, right? Which is basically the well for effortless manifestation. Now, you know my theory, and I think the best theory, as to why we're all here and what the point of it all is. But you don't really know why alignment allows for manifestation. So watch this right now if you want to navigate life effortlessly from now on. And don't forget, work on the inside and the outside will follow. Take care, man. Jai.